and final webinar in our Microsoft Office webinar series. Today's webinar is how to easily create amazing and useful presentations using Microsoft PowerPoint. My name is Brooke Keith, and I'm in the marketing department at Rivet Software. And Microsoft Office products, and especially PowerPoint, have been a staple since I started here 4 years ago. And my co-presenter today is Jordan Woodard.
Hi everyone, I'm Jordan Woodard, recently dubbed Director of Business Development here at Rivet Software, and I'm excited to be presenting PowerPoint as it's a tool that I use every day, and it's great to have a marketing perspective and a financial reporting perspective, so I'm very excited to give this presentation with Brooke. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping items. We will be giving out CPE credit for attending this webinar. To get CPE credit, you'll want to answer all 5 of the polling questions throughout the presentation. Afterwards will be a follow-up survey on the quality of the webinar as for CPE. You need to fill out that survey. It will pop up after you close the webinar. Also, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to enter them in the GoToMeeting questions box. We'll either answer them at the end or follow up personally with an answer via email. Thank you for joining us, and I think that's all I have. I'm going to turn it back over to Brooke to get the presentation started.
Okay, and the agenda that we have for you today starts off with the tips. And this is a portion that I'm going to be presenting today. And these are just my favorite presentation tips. And they're going to sound a lot like common sense, and actually they are, but they're without a doubt the foundation of every great presentation.
Then we'll go into the tricks. Part of my job is working efficiently and effectively to create financial reports and report back to my board or members of management. And to do that, I use a lot of PowerPoint tricks to get through creation of presentation, make sure I'm including the right content, and I'll show you some of those tricks, and that's just using native features of PowerPoint. And then I'll also go into specifically financial reporting in PowerPoint, and some of the efficiencies our subscribers to our software, Crossfire, gain from linking their financial data directly into the PowerPoint.
And like Jordan mentioned, we've got about 5 polling questions that we're going to pose to you today. And we're going to start off with the first one here. And the first question is, do you use PowerPoint to report your information today? One moment, we'll get the question up here shortly. Okay, so again, do you use PowerPoint, not PowerPoint, but we got PowerPoint to report financial information today? A, yes, B, no, or C, not applicable. We'll give everybody some time to answer the question, and these questions are going to be helpful for us too as we move through the presentation today, just to give us a baseline on, who's online and how you're actually using PowerPoint today. So thanks for making this happen. So it looks like we've got a resounding, looks about like 70% that yes, you are, and 25% no, and 2% not applicable. So again, we're going to get 2 questions out of the way quickly. Polling question number 2, where do you typically use PowerPoint? A, in your external meetings, B, department meetings, C, board meetings, D, none of the above. So far, it looks like a lot of you are using PowerPoint, in department meetings, board meetings. Those are really the 2 strongest, and it looks like about 10% of you are using them in external meetings. And looks like a few of you don't use it yet, but hopefully after this webinar, you will. So thanks for making that happen. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into tip number 1 on how to easily create amazing and useful PowerPoint presentations. So number 1, the first tip that I want to share with you today is tell a story. You know, what's the point of your presentation? You should always be asking yourself this question every time you start planning your presentation, and also, you know, periodically ask yourself the same question, you know, throughout the whole process that you're planning your presentation. It's really good, and it helps you, you know, not drift away from your original point. So, and always be asking yourself, you know, what problem are you trying to solve for your audience? Tip number 2, less is more. So when in doubt, just leave it out. I know it's hard, but just try to do it. You know, because PowerPoint is so robust, it really is tempting to overuse, you know, all the bells and whistles that it does offer. So, and the key word here is overuse. You know, you definitely want to find a balance, because you definitely want to use, and you'll see later in Jordan's presentation that there's a lot of great bells and whistles per se to use, but just find the balance. And also you're going to want to, you know, use the least amount of text possible while still getting your point across. So I know it's hard to cut things, but your audience is going to thank you, and the data that you're presenting is going to be a lot more memorable if you keep it simple. Number 3 tip, give them a break. And the them in this is your audience. You know, the average adult attention span is 20 minutes. That's not very long. You know, and I know that we're in a Microsoft Office webinar today, but there's just this one of my favorite presentation concepts that really drills home this point. And it's actually from the late Steve Jobs, so that's why I mentioned the Microsoft Office here. He obviously did a lot of presentations, so one of the things that he would do is he would drop a blank, just a white slide into the middle of his presentations just to simply give his audience a break. So again, I know it's you know, hard to keep sometimes your presentations to 20 minutes. Make that your goal if you can, but I know a lot of times you need to make them longer, but just make sure that you're giving your audience a break somehow. Like that. There's the blank slide. What'd you think? I just wanted to give you all a break. I know we're not quite at 20 minutes, but we're getting there. So anyways, let's move on. Number 4, use your slides as highlighters. You know, don't tell the whole story in your slides. So, you know, I know a lot of us have been on presentations where, you know, the presenter just literally verbatim, and we've probably all done it, you know, reads verbatim from the slides. You know, people, they want to be educated, they want to be inspired, they want to use their brains in different ways. So just make sure that your slides, you're using them as tools and not as a crutch. So that's what I want you to remember about this one. Slides as highlighters. And my last and final tip is rehearse, rehearse, and then rehearse. So I know, you know, we all know practice does make perfect. At least, you know, it's going to make your next presentation a whole lot better. And I also want you to notice that a few of these tips actually tie together really well. Hence, you know, the more you practice, the less you're going to need to read from your slides. So remember those two points about these 5 tips. So let's go over these 5 tips that I want you to leave with today. First one being, tell a story, have a point. Number 2, less is always more. When in doubt, leave it out. Number 3, give your audience a break. 4th, use the slides just to highlight. You know, it's not an excuse to write your first novel. And the last one I want to leave you with today is rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. And I'm going to go back before I hand things over to Jordan here. I want to go back to my first tip that I had shared with you is, you know, knowing what problem that you're solving for your audience and always, you know, keeping that in mind. And really what I want you all to leave with, the point that I'm trying to make today is, you know, these tips, you may seem, again, like common sense, but those are the most important things to remember, and those are the things that we tend to forget most often. So my goal is that you actually, at some point print these out, put them up at your desk, put them somewhere on your desktop for when you're ready to, start preparing for your next presentation. And, some of you may have never even done that before. So if it's today or next week or in a month, my goal would be to have you refer back to these 5 things before you start or as you're planning your PowerPoint. So with that said, I am going to pass things over to Jordan. He's going to dive very deep into PowerPoint. You're going to have a great time. And again, we just really appreciate everybody joining us today.
Hello everyone. I just wanted to start my portion of the presentation off with a little bit of background on Rivet. You'll get background throughout my portion of this presentation, but Rivet started as a company that was all about managing data. And what you can see in this diagram on the left-hand side is something that represents the big gray bubble of all the data that can be used and put into a report. And for our filers, or our users, that's coming from a database and an entity resource planning database or business intelligence or corporate performance management system. And we've kind of coined that as the data repository. Getting data out of a data repository is something that Rivet and Rivet's Crossfire is really good at. Rivet's Crossfire runs in native Microsoft Office, and that's something we're really proud of. That's why we've had this 3-part webinar series on just Microsoft and maybe a couple little insights on how Crossfire works. But Microsoft Office is the most powerful tool, and it's something we're so excited about that we had this webinar. Things that we've enhanced about Microsoft is the ability to manage disclosures with multiple users in the documents, document controls, just internal controls that help people section off parts of the document and allow certain users to have certain access. Also managing the data in we call it extensible business reporting language data underneath the documents, manage that and give our users tools to do that. And of course, we are known for allowing our users to report their HTML and XBRL documents to the SEC using our filing tools and filing wizards. And the investor relations portion is just embracing what we know about electronic business information exchange and how XBRL can go through the information chain a lot faster and more accurate to our investors. And so Rivet facilitates that in the next mile of financial reporting. And once that data is reported, like the data filed with the SEC, Rivet's Crossfire and Rivet stores all that data as a resource for research and for comparison and analysis, and that's our financial analytics bubble. And then interactive reporting happens, maybe you're not reporting to the SEC or to an external source, but you're reporting internally, or you're using some of that data that was filed to bring it back into your system so you can compare against your peers, your financials to your peers. So that's the big picture of what Rivet does, but today we'll focus on Microsoft Office, specifically PowerPoint. So the tricks. I have 3 sections of tricks. I wanted to show you some of the ways you can work more efficiently using templates and shortcuts. I'll show you how to launch, load, and customize, and I'll actually show you that live outside of this presentation. I'm going to show you some of the tools you have at your disposal, and I'm going to do that by explaining the different parts of PowerPoint, ribbons, chunks, and icons. And then I'm going to show you how to work more effectively to accurately communicate using some of the I guess, more fun features of PowerPoint: transitions, animations, and picture tools. So I'll go through these slides, and then we'll recap by doing this live to create a new presentation. If you're a Windows user, and most of our audience usually is, you can use the Windows button and the R key to launch the run command. And if you type in the command PowerPNT, it will launch PowerPoint really, really fast, and I'll demonstrate in a minute. Also, you'll notice that I'm using probably a different interface of PowerPoint than you're used to. I'm using Office 2013, but the 2010 and 2013 versions of PowerPoint are very similar. 2013 came with a few more bells and whistles, but it's using the same functionality for the most part. But I'm going to show you how to load a template from online and show you some of the benefits of doing that. I'm going to show you how to quickly get your content into the PowerPoint and then modify the way the slides flow by using outline view, and how to take notes in the note section for helping to present. And then finally, we'll look at customizing using design elements. So with that, let me just go through the demo portion. Here's my PowerPoint presentation, but now it's time to get a new PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to use Windows R, and then I've already typed in PowerPoint. Now watch how fast this loads. This is one option. I'm all about shortcuts, and shortcuts are hard to start using, but when you do use them, you eventually see the accumulated time savings. So I'll go through a couple of different shortcuts just to get things flowing and to make your PowerPoint more polished and efficient. So PowerPoint, click OK. It's up and running really quickly. I didn't have to go click and search for where I put my PowerPoint icon. It just launches. And you can see the Office 2013 is a little bit smoother and cleaner looking. But basically, I'm going to take you through how I create a financial report just using what Microsoft has given me. So if I wanted to create a financial reporting slide deck and I had no idea where to start, I could go into the search ribbon and type in financial reporting. And you can see that Microsoft was going out and searching for the different financial reporting templates. Microsoft has given us literally thousands and thousands of templates to use for reporting different presentations, whether it's a presentation on how to cook or a presentation on financial reporting. Using Microsoft's online database is a way you're going to drive efficiencies to getting your template and getting your report out the door. You can also see that Microsoft has also given me Excel files and Word files, and so all these start to talk to each other and can be used in tandem. For now, I'm going to report my quarterly results using the template that was already built for me by Microsoft. Here's a preview. I can get an idea of what's included, and I'll simply create. Microsoft has given us several slides, but I want to quickly add my content to tell my financial story and not the template that Microsoft provided. What I highly recommend is going into your view and using outline view to start developing your content. Outline view creates a slide for the first bullet of a list and starts adding content in the second bullets. So here we see agenda is a slide and quarterly results is indented. If I wanted to report, let's say, fiscal year financial outlook on its own slide, I can simply click Shift and back tab, and that adds the slide, maintains the format of the template, and I can get through my content much more efficiently by using this outline view to make sure I have a good flow of data, that my train of thought is in order, and I'm including everything I need to include. You can also see with the Microsoft template that we've loaded, you get formatted tables, you get graphs, and I'm trying to find one, graphs already formatted, and using the pre-built Microsoft templates as a baseline is always a good practice because Microsoft knows the tiny tweaks to make this PowerPoint work as efficiently as possible. Once we've added our content, I recommend customizing it so it's flashy, it represents your brand. A lot of times you'll have a company branded slide deck and you're expected to go in and manage it and use pieces, copy slides, copy brand images, but there's a better way. So in Microsoft, there's something called a theme under the Design tab. And a theme we can see here is going to reformat the graphs, the backgrounds, the text, sometimes the bullets of the underlying presentation. So you've customized your report to have a financial reporting feel by using the templates. You've customized it by adding your own content and just using what Microsoft gives you as a baseline, and then you can customize it simply by changing a theme. So within themes, you can have a variation of a theme. And for example, I'm going to go with maybe just a slight variation, or I can use this drop-down menu to change fonts or have a different color theme. For now, I'm just going to change mine to Corbel, or let's find something more dramatic. This bold Franklin Gothic. If this was my company's theme, I might add things like a brand image, our company's font, or maybe the color scheme of our brand. What's nice about this is once it's been created, a theme that's been customized and leveraging the themes already built into Microsoft, and there are thousands of templates and themes that you can choose from, you can also save your theme. So I'll click down on my drop-down arrow for themes, select Save Current Theme, and I'm just going to put that on my desktop. The beauty here is when I switch back to my original presentation, I'm just going to close this one now. I can go to my Design tab and apply this theme consistently across the presentation. So here we go. I'm just going to, I'm going to select Browse for Theme, go to my desktop, and see how this can be applied to all my PowerPoint presentations quickly and easily. And you can see I now have a more embellished version. I'm going to take some of Brooke's guidance here and make this thing a little simpler. I think this is too noisy. I'm going to use Control-Z and take away my old theme. So themes are going to help drive how efficiently you build reports and get the nuance of themes and decor. But that decor is what's going to make you look more polished at the end of the day. So we've made it through Launch, Load, and Customize. I'm going to start into Presentation Tools just to show you what they are, but I first need to give us a polling question. So the next polling question, I'll pop it up right now. Generally, you prepare your presentations with which of the following, and check that all that apply. Do you put your notes on paper? Do you use PowerPoint outline view as demonstrated in this presentation? Do you just start throwing things into PowerPoint slides? Or do you do it out of your own memory or some other method? And this is a pretty interesting response so far. We got 74% of you have voted, and most take notes on paper, and I definitely appreciate that. It's, I don't want to think through launching a tool. I'm on the plane, jot them down, and have your bulleted points. It looks like only 16% use outline view. Perhaps if you're trying to start from scratch and you don't know what's included in, say, a standard board report, you can use the board reports included in Microsoft's templates and then use that to guide what's included. And sometimes that's convenient for me, especially when I've been making a lot of marketing reports lately, and so I use some of their marketing reports to do my SWOT analysis and all of that. 58% say PowerPoint slides, so you just throw the information in there as you go, and of course that's an efficient way because what you see is what you get when you throw it into a slide. And then 13% said memory only. So I'm just going to close that and relaunch my PowerPoint. All right, so the next section of PowerPoint I want to cover is ribbons, chunks, and icons. So these terms are terms that are going to help you communicate to others using PowerPoint, as they are the Microsoft standard language for the Microsoft icon, or PowerPoint icons. So the ribbon you see here is the insert ribbon, and it has all the features included in insert. And depending on what you're doing, you might need to know more about these different sections or these different ribbons. The next, I guess, layer down is called a chunk. And since we're a Microsoft partner, we had to learn this from them because we had no idea what you call these little chunks of icons. But between the bars are grouped similar, I guess, features that are related to images, and it's nice to have those in one chunk just so you know where to go for that type of data. And that's how Rivet's Crossfire works as well. The next part is an icon. And of course, an icon is going to give you features and functionality in one specific area of PowerPoint. So the icon has oftentimes a drop-down menu, or you can select it and it will pull up a dialog pane for the next, I guess, layer of functionality. One tip I wanted to give you, since this is the tips section, is to learn how to use Alt to see the shortcuts and navigate even more efficiently. So I'm going to back out of my presentation. I'm going to show you this trick. Is holding Alt is going to let you see what's available to click next, and I'm going to hold Alt and click in, and that's going to take me back to Insert, and then I want the chunk for images. Instead of having to click the chunk for images, I can go directly to the pictures, which is P, to pull up my pictures and open them and insert them. And so that's basically the ribbon. The different ribbons you have is a home, which is where you usually start and do most of your work. You have insert, which allows you to link and add graphs and add pictures and even online images like we saw with online templates. We'll go over images in a minute. The ability to design we saw a minute ago with different themes, and transitions we'll cover more on a future slide. Animations is how you get those little bouncy effects like you saw when my arrows drop down. Slideshow has a lot to do with planning and timing of your presentation and even recording your presentation. Review is a good place to leave comments and check your spelling. View is a good way to view the different formats and layouts of your presentation. Again, I showed you outline view. And then add-ins is where you get to outside of Microsoft standard PowerPoint add-ins, and here you see our add-in for crossfire linking. Super simple, and I'll show you how that's used in a minute. But back to the presentation. I'm just going to bounce through these pretty quickly. Transitions. So if you didn't catch that, transitions kind of speak for themselves. It's a way to capture your audience and get them back on point. I'm using one of the 2013 transitions, but you know, if you said my ribbons, chunks, and icon slide was garbage, let's just throw it out. So you can have a lot of fun if you effectively use transitions. And I love transitions because they make my presentations soar. And there's my little origami bird. I'll play that one back. So PowerPoint has some really cool tools. It will make you look better. People are going to say, what's going on with your PowerPoint? And that's the goal of this presentation. We want to give you tools and get you excited about using Microsoft products to make yourself look more polished than perhaps your peers, or just to look better in the eyes of your managers or your subordinates. So animations, unlike transitions, are more about not the transition between slides, but what's on the screen. And they can change the look and feel of your presentation. Perhaps you're feeling a little more blue. They can be wildly animated, or perhaps a little more subtle. So animations can communicate as well, and it's just more interesting, more engaging. They can be a little crazy, and Brooke said if when in doubt, leave it out. So if it's just a crazy animation, maybe consider not using it. But if it communicates a point, animations can give your presentation a heartbeat. All right, so now I'm just showing off. Here, I'll do it again. A heartbeat. But animations are a fun way to, you know, engage and get people back to watching your presentation. And hopefully they're fun. I had a lot of fun doing this. I don't normally focus on features of PowerPoint, but this practice really made me realize that this is something I need to do well, especially being a representative of Microsoft using Microsoft and Rivet's Crossfire. Animation pane, if you haven't used it, here's all the animations I used for this single slide. I'll just back out and show you what it looks like. Under animations, this is the animation pane, which comes in handy. It really, really comes in handy if you're doing multiple animations on one slide. I get asked a lot, how do you add an animation to an image that's already animated? Just instead of clicking one of the quick animations available here, go to Add Animation and maybe pick an emphasis. And so you can see that that grow animation is now at the bottom of my animation pane. And I can move that to the beginning, present. There goes my origami bird, just because I didn't transfer from the last slide. And then hopefully this presentation grows your skills in PowerPoint. So we just wanted to go through some animations and have a fun time with it. Let's skip to my next slide. If you're familiar with, I'm very familiar. Oops, that was not pretty enough. I have to make it pretty. Let me get through my, there it is. Another animation to entertain all you folks on this webinar. But another effective way of communicating information is obviously with a picture. And so with this picture, I wanted to tell you a story. I guess, background for me in presenting with pictures is TED Talks. Most of the TED Talks usually have just a single picture on a slide, and they don't illustrate bullet points. And the idea behind that is to give something very memorable associated to an image and have your audience remember that. Perhaps that would be your brand. You can see the Rivet brand here, perhaps, or the FASB brand. Perhaps it's to tell a story about traveling. Here I have a story that's really relevant. Last night I flew back from, I made the slide this morning, by the way. Last night I flew back from FASB headquarters. I was visiting the FASB as I serve on the taxonomy advisory group. And I won't give you the details of that taxonomy advisory group, but we basically work on the US GAAP taxonomy and make sure we provide for new accounting pronouncements in the GAAP taxonomy. But I drove back to LaGuardia Airport, hopped on a plane, and something interesting happened on the plane. I was actually sitting next to a guy. He's on the window and I'm on the aisle. And we started talking about, you know, how expensive luggage is, and it was kind of funny because he asked me what I did, and I said financial reporting and accounting. And he turns to me and he says, well, I'm the chief accounting officer of a company in Denver. That's interesting that you were involved in finance and accounting. He asked me what I did, and I said, well, extensible business reporting language. That's, I guess, the quickest way to relate to our audience because that's what we focus on. And it turns out the guy is one of our clients. And so we started talking about our service and how happy he was. And I'm not doing this as I guess, to pump up the Rivet brand, even though it's quite obvious this does pump up the Rivet brand. But I started asking him about what he thought of the PowerPoint CPE that I'm delivering now. And he says, well, his accountants, he's got a team of 25 or so, have a lot to gain from learning how to present effectively. So on our plane ride from New York to Colorado, I got to reminisce and think about how I was going to write this picture slide using pictures. So I'll show you a couple of the tricks that I used. One of my favorite tricks is bringing in pictures from online. So you can see this nice Colorado image. If you go to our Insert tab, you have an option for online pictures. And this is, I think this feature is only in Office 2013. Just to hopefully excite a few more of you about Rivet's Crossfire. Tomorrow, the 19th, our next version, Crossfire 5.7, is going to be available, and that will allow you to launch our tools in 2013. Something interesting to note. Back to the state. So I wanted to get a picture of Colorado, so I can go to office.com's clip art, which is more organized clip art than, say, Google. It just kind of organizes things more logically and, I guess, more businessy. But if I type in, let's do Colorado and select search, I have the picture of Colorado that I used, and I have the Colorado state map. And so I just inserted the Colorado picture using the online tools. It's a lot faster than having to go to the web, copy paste. And then for the map I can use picture tools. I wanted it to blend in. And you can see there's different artistic effects and even different colors you can use on a map to get it to blend in. And so I just wanted a more polished way to communicate my story of flying from New York to Colorado with this accountant that uses our tool and who said that the CPE would be worthwhile. So that was very gratifying to have that story from my picture slide before I even started it. But hopefully you can see how to get pictures in efficiently, tell a story, and see the value add. So I'm going to launch back into the presentation and summarize. We've effectively worked in PowerPoint to launch, load, and customize a financial reporting document. We've looked at the tools that are available and how to navigate them. And we worked effectively by communicating and engaging our audience with transitions, animations, and pictures. With that, we'll go on to the next polling question. Just launch it on your screen. So this polling question is, this webinar will help you better leverage which of the following PowerPoint functionalities. I apologize. Check all that apply. So we saw shortcuts, either using Windows R to run PowerPoint or holding the Alt key to navigate the ribbons and the icons. Animations. If you haven't dug into animations and given it a full-hearted attempt, I know it's hard, especially as accountants, to figure out when to use animations, but I really recommend it because once you get a handle of it, it's an effective tool that will engage your audience. And then picture editing. And picture editing, I'm going to tell you right now, is not my strong suit. I usually just grab one that's relevant and throw it in there. But picture editing is a skill to have if you want to add that final polish to your presentation. So 41% of respondents did like using shortcuts, and that's I guess the number one that people are going to leverage better. So holding that Alt key and navigating, and even using Windows R to run. 22% are going to use transitions, which transitions came with Office 2010. I apologize for anyone on the phone with the previous version, but there's incentive to upgrade, I suppose. And animations, 27% are going to use those a little bit better, or a little bit more, to help them better communicate. So, on to the next slide. The next slide has to do with financial reporting in PowerPoint. In our first installment of this Microsoft Office series, I did a lot about formatting numbers and presenting them in Excel, because that's where you don't just crush numbers, you can crunch them, or don't just crunch numbers, you can crush them. So what we did in that exercise was formatting the data in a way that it's usable, maximizing it so we get all the little morsels of information out of the data and into a consumable Excel file, and pivoting that data to make reports to eventually tell a story. And during this section, I'm actually going to show you, it's a pretty quick section, how to do this in PowerPoint using Excel and not only our tool. So I want to start by going through my financial reporting section. This could be a board book, this could be an internal report of any kind, but I wanted to tell a financial story. So here you see on this slide that I'm giving you a company update. It says XYZ Software is the premier financial reporting solution, the market. So I immediately see a misspelling, and I also see some other language about the advances, and I have 2012 data and a revenue number. So we're going to come back in and fix that spelling error and also update the data in a single click. On the next slide, we can see I've got income statement data are linked up for 2012. I presented it quarterly, and I've given some data bars. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to go back. We missed a slide because my polling questions were still up. But basically, I'm looking at some text data in a PowerPoint that's involving 2012 information. I have an income statement for 2012 formatted in a pivot table with some Excel data bars that were covered in the previous Excel webinar, which is also archived on our website if you'd like to use that to make the same type of presentation. I have some summary data for the different reporting segments on the revenue for 2012, and I have some just a little bit different format. I was playing with formats on operating income. And so perhaps this is the financial story. I want to walk my CFO through how we're doing, and I've displayed this in a number of ways. I'm just going to switch back to the beginning and show you how this works. So I will exit the presentation, open the actual file that runs it by double-clicking, and you can see my data is in Excel, and that's where it lives. I can't edit the data in PowerPoint. That might not be something I want to do. Maybe I have marketers that are presenting my data, and I just want them to link to my Excel file. They can't come in here and change it without having access to this Excel file. So what I can do here, and I'll show you how this works, is we've formatted our data in a way that it can use Power Pivot, or just pivot tables, I'm sorry, in an Excel sheet. And you can also do this, this is the data. You can also do this by using Power Pivot to connect to a database. And that's part of what Rivet does, is connecting data. So what I've done here is link all these numbers together. There's the company overview, here's the income statement, here's the segment history, and I've added the 2013 data, and I've used Excel slicers, which came with Excel 2010. So I can simply click, and my numbers go to the new number of 82,438, and say I wanted to edit this to say XYZ software is the premier financial reporting solution in the market. I can go to my income statement. Everything was linked up, so I basically had all my data update, and it's just being a little bit smarter with how I use Excel. I've got my segment data updated. I can see that my total is that same, my total revenue is that same number that we saw on the company overview for total income, 82,438. And so how do I get that into my presentation? Do I have to copy this? Do I have to copy income statement? Not if you use Rivet's interactive reporting. It's interactive because it's live, it updates. All you have to do is click Save. And you might be linking from many documents to one presentation, or many departments working in separate Excel files into one master, say, Word file or presentation. But all you have to do is, as people save these documents and manage them in their files, is switch back over, use crossfire linking, and refresh all data. So I've refreshed my data. I have 2013 as the year. I have the 8243 value. My numbers have updated, and I can see basically all the numbers were updated to 2013 using linking, and the little graphs were updated. And that's basically how we link data. The other important part about financial reporting is not only being efficient by using links. I'm sorry, I'm switching back to my original points, but don't just reduce risk by linking. That's a great practice, but make sure you're telling a story with your data. So I'm going to go back into Excel and let you know the logic of one of my reports, which was segment reporting. When my boss comes in and asks me to show him 2012 or 2011 or data on the fly, I want to be able to do that very quickly. I don't want to enter and make a new graph. So I've used pivot table to tell a story of how this company is doing quarterly and year by year. And I had to get the data small enough that you can read it and consume it and it makes sense, but broad enough that it provides value. So here is something that I've done, is one of the native Excel charts, which is a donut chart. And what you can see here is if I hover over each of these segments, I can see that the quarters are going out from quarter one in the middle to quarter four on the outside. I can see the value and I can see the percent of the total. And it's all built into Excel, very efficient, very easily to tell a story to my boss. I said in 2013, we started selling Crossfire faster than we ever have before. And you can see the growth in Q4 of our Crossfire as compared to our other offerings. Net, in quarter four, we sold more products overall, but the product that did the best, you can see here, was revenue from Crossfire. And I also did some color coding, hoping that that would tell a financial story too, so you can kind of see that the blue here represents the blue here. I was kind of on the fence if that was effective. And I also used data bars, and you can learn how to do all of this in our previous webinar that's recorded on our website. I'm going to switch back to the presentation now, and I guess kind of breeze over, use PowerPoint to drive the point home. I'm not sure how to really, I guess, use my animations and my pictures here, but perhaps I wanted to let my boss know we hit it out of the park in Q4. Why not try an online picture and call it baseball and throw it in there just to bring the point home. This is taking a little while longer to load than usual. Well, there it is. And then baseball. So we're knocking it out of the park. Insert my picture. I don't want to distract from the financials being reported. So I can add some animations to remove the graphs. And add an animation to let my boss know we're hitting it out of the park. So we've communicated a point, we've got the data linked up, and now it's as simple as using PowerPoint to express that we knocked it out of the park and explain that that was in Q4. And then hopefully our bosses remember, or our colleagues remember the image as well as the financial stats. One last question, we're almost there, and we'll get to answering your questions. So I'm going to launch it right now. So you saw us link the data, and it's just a way to get the right Excel calculated data into a, into a presentation. And sometimes that means managing one Excel document and linking it to 10 presentations, 5 Word documents, loading the XBRL data if you have it on the web or to the SEC. And so linking is important to us, and that's where we focus a lot of our time and effort. The question is, having the ability to link data will, and check all that apply. Will it save time? Will it reduce the risk of error? We're asking you, and I don't want to just tell you. If you see the value in that, select reduce the risk of error. Will it add efficiencies in internal controls? So as you file your financials, it's important to have a process in place and have that process be documented and auditable. And that might be as simple as saying, well, the master file for taxes is only accessible by the tax manager who has it saved, locally on his machine, and that is linked to the final 10Q or 10K report and associated board book. And that is kind of the audit efficiency play. But if you think that that would help, answer C, or if you don't think that any of these are helpful, answer none of the above. So I take a I'm very proud of the fact that we do these things and think about linking to create efficiencies. And it looks like our attendees do too. So no one answered none of the above. 83% of the attendees answered save time, 85 said reduce the risk of error, and 44 said efficiencies and internal controls. So that's a pretty good spread. 87% of the viewers voted, and almost all of them said it would save time. So with that, this is the kind of fun presentation to wrap up our Microsoft series. I'm going to go into a few questions from the audience. If you have any, enter them now. And give me a quick second to read through a few of these, and we'll start answering. One of the questions is, will you guys record this presentation? Absolutely. Within a couple days, if not tomorrow, we will have this posted on our corporate website. I believe it's under events, and then you can scroll down to the recordings. And also your CPE certificates, if somebody's asking about CPE certificates, those will be coming within a few weeks, just so you know. I got a few questions letting me know that I left my polling question open, so thank you for commenting. Sorry about that. I have one question about somebody using 2010, and they're asking how do they get financial results theme, because he couldn't find it in 2010. And I believe I can send that to you in an email, because the themes are just files, PowerPoint files, so I could save it off and email it to you. I'll look into where the library of themes are for 2010 users, but it's through Microsoft.com. So one thing Microsoft's been doing really well is putting everything, all their content, all their themes, all their pre-built presentations online. And so PowerPoint's not as bulky when you download it, but you can hook it up online and get all the myriad of content, themes and pre-made presentations and images, and I think even transitions, and there's a whole new set of add-ins with Office 365. But you can get those usually through, it's through Microsoft.com, but Microsoft did a good job of putting that feature in Office 2013, so you can just search it from anywhere. So I love that about Office 2013, and thank you for the question. Oh, and then that same person said, "Whoop, they found the template." That's kind of funny. Thanks for letting me know. I have a question about holding down Alt for Office version 2007 and 2010. That does work in both 2007 and 2010. So thank you for that question. I have a question about what version of Microsoft Office does Crossfire work with. That'll be in, I might not be the best person to answer this, but I think it's 2007. I know it's 2010, and recently, with our new release tomorrow, it'll be 2013. We have one user that said they missed how we linked Excel to PowerPoint. I didn't do a good job showing that, perhaps. The way it works with our Crossfire tool, I'm just going to say I didn't have this graph in here yet. Somebody asked, how do you link it? The way it works, and this is Crossfire special sauce, is you name a range of cells, and you can see when I select that section of cells, it's called operating income. I'm just going to rename it operating. Oh, let me close my poll, sorry. Here we are back in Excel, and I was going to show you how to link one of these. So you select a range of cells, and you can see this one's called operating income because I've already named it. I'm just going to rename it operating and hit enter. And that's now what we call a named range. And what's nice about named ranges is say I enter a new row, and I want this row to have data bars or something to add value to the data. So I'm going to insert, let's say, a line data bar for all this data. And then save this. And now my named range is maintained. So I've added a new row, but it still maintains this operating. To insert a named range, and it doesn't matter if you add or move columns because it's a named range, Excel knows that. I'm going to copy that, go back over into my presentation, and I'm going to use Crossfire linking to insert that table that I copied. And you can see that it came in, and if I wanted to, I can go back to Excel, delete my row. My named range is maintained. I save it, and then I refresh, and now it's just the act of formatting in the destination file. Okay, we're almost ready to wrap it up. We've got a few more minutes. I got some more comments for leaving the polling screen up when I was trying to show you linking. Again, I apologize. Polling questions are going to be the bane of my presentation today. All right, so we've reached the end of our presentation on behalf of Brooke and myself. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you really gained something to help you do your job better, faster, more accurately. We've definitely used Crossfire and just PowerPoint to increase how we perform here, and using those shortcuts and being an advocate for the tools that Microsoft has already developed for us is just part of what we do. So since this is the end to our Microsoft Office webinar, I'll have to invite you to join some other Rivet webinars in the future, and hopefully down the line more Microsoft webinars. If there's anything you want to learn about Microsoft, feel free to reach out to us at any time, and perhaps we can arrange a CPE for that topic specifically. On behalf of Brooke and I and the whole Rivet family, thank you for joining, and enjoy this webinar online and share with your friends. Thank you. One last thing. When you close your webinar, your CPE survey question will pop up. So I'm going to end the webinar now, and then you can see the survey questions to get your CPE. But thanks again.